Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's astrologer Eric Rosen for your daily horoscope for Tuesday, July 28th, 2020. Thanks so much for being here. Well, I feel like today's kind of a big day of change. There's not a whole lot of huge moving parts in the astrology, although we're kind of coming to the cusp of some things that I think is going to bring in a little bit of a change energy. Sun's still in Leo, so we're still, wanting to lead with our passion, leading with love, but we do have Mercury in Cancer that's now going to come out of its post shadow period, meaning like our minds are starting to not do so much of any type of implementation from anything that we've been reviewing from the Mercury retrograde that went on a few weeks ago. It's more now about starting to look ahead, starting to look at how can we feel better, but with a challenge over to Mars that's in Aries with Chiron there, you know, like we can keep looking for ways to feel better that are maybe kind of shallow in nature, trying to perpetuate the ego, or we can look for huge opportunities, huge gains to do some of the shadow work that I think is really a big deal in the astrology today, especially with the moon in Scorpio. So it's kind of making a commitment to releasing past sensitivities, past resentments, with it being a Mercury in Cancer and a moon in Scorpio. It is making a very friendly aspect to that moon in Scorpio, so it's digging in, it's doing the shadow work. But there is this opposition that is from Mercury over to Jupiter and Capricorn that's starting to form. It's not quite that strong of this like tug of war between the two. However, it is starting to form, and so it is starting to create some tension with some big obstacles. And I think the way through that big obstacle is essentially through compassion, with Mercury starting to make a friendly aspect over to Neptune. It's interesting because, I mean, if you guys have listened to me for any, length of time, either speaking in person or on these videos, these horoscopes that I've been putting out, I'll bring in the metaphors, the movie metaphors. Sometimes it just comes to me as like a random vision. And so the one that I got for describing the information I've shared with you so far is like, Jupiter and Capricorn, it's like it's one big road. It's kind of like there's only one road up the mountain. Like there's no opportunity for scaling up the mountain. It's like you just kind of got to follow the path, and it's a very thin, narrow path, but there's a big reward at the end. And so it's encountering a huge obstacle today. And I think that huge obstacle, the vision that came to me, is like a big giant brain, essentially. Basically, what is it? It's our minds. And so, with Mercury, which is the mind, starting to oppose like the path that is Jupiter and Capricorn, it's kind of like, are we going to, be afraid to, deal with it and bring some compassion and understanding to those thoughts and kind of release those past resentments? Or are we, going to succumb to, some of the fear, which is ultimately comes down to mental issues, even though Venus is starting to come off of that challenge to Neptune, like that stuff is still very much there. But we do have friendly aspects of the moon in Scorpio, to have that power to stand up to that energy that's making aspects over to the things of Capricorn today, Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto. And so there's a good opportunity here for naturally just to be firm in ourselves, to not get scared off the path by the mind, and to not turn around and run. The mind will try to create these ideas that, no, this is too uncomfortable, this isn't the place to be directing our energy. It'll feel uncomfortable at first, but it's like, don't go back, don't fall into worried thoughts, don't go back to old past patterns. It's really more just about recognizing the fact that that obstacle will come up, but it gets easier once you just plant your feet firmly and say, okay, I'm going to face you. And then essentially you're just bringing some compassion and surrender energy to it. In fact, um, if you're wondering about surrender, drop a message in the comments and I'll recommend a great book for you on surrender. But we've also got a moon that, this is just kind of doubling down on like the theme of today. It's like the moon is making friendly aspects to Neptune. And so the way to break through to the other side, to continue up the path, up the mountain, to get the reward, especially towards the end of the year, it's like, it's getting past the mind. It is bringing compassion to it. It's merging the compassion of the heart, like with the mind, and not having them constantly battling each other, right? It's like we know what we want in our hearts, but then we have all these excuses saying like why we won't do it, which are all coming from past conditioning, past patterns, past disappointments. And it's like we know what we want, but this is saying, no, we can't have it, we can't do it. There's all these, illusions of restrictions, although some of them are real, but it's like, really, it's like trying to go into those areas anyway with the South Node in Sagittarius and Mars and Chiron in Aries. It's like any place you're trying to go that's like cut off or restricted and it's a dead end, you can't go there. It's like, that's because the ego is trying to lead, okay? So it's letting that stuff go. It's surrendering those ideas that we can't move forward and getting the heart and mind on board. Venus is also a big, major factor today too, because at the end of the day, it's also going to come out of its post-shadow period. So all this like deep review we've been doing for the past few months on relationships, projects, what we're creating, what we're manifesting, that implementation period has reached its peak. And so, we've kind of reached, I think, a sense of undeniable truth in our partnerships and what we're creating, especially with that moon in Scorpio and with Venus starting to make aspects over to Pluto and Capricorn. But it is a good time for taking your worth back too, your value. And so by doing that is by basically just saying like, okay, I know, what it is I want to create. I know the partnerships that I want to be in, and just simply, dedicating yourself to that and affirming to yourself that you're not going to, go backwards on any of these things, but especially looking forward, because we're dealing with Pluto here in Capricorn, is going to be the thing that establishes your value. It's not anything you have to do. It's just making a firm decision. So, don't turn around. There's reclamation on the other side of all this, right? I would say too that, there's also kind of this other element too, as we're starting to see a challenge between the Sun in Leo and Uranus and Taurus, where there is like kind of this give and take between, I would say, the unpredictability of like money and our manifesting situations, financial stability or trying to attain that, and our happiness. It's like, if you're unhappy, it's going to affect your money situation. If you're happy, money is going to come into your life. And so, with Mars, Chiron, and Aries, especially with, the Sun making friendly aspects over to Chiron, or starting to at least, it's kind of like saying like, how can I be happy? It's like, there are ways to be happy, but it's like, is it going and putting on like more ego mask? Is it like, doing some weird thing with your surface level identity to feel better that's just not going to really deal with it? Or the real way to really go through this it's to heal. It's to, deal with the brain, deal with that mind that's on the path, deal with the triggers. With Saturn making aspects over to the North Node, it is being the diligent observer of your thoughts throughout the day. And so this isn't just, it is kind of like a boss battle type of thing, like, it's not just like little conflicts with little things popping out on the path climbing the mountain. It's this big brain. It's like clearly blocking the path. But it's going to kind of be the theme of the day of like dealing with that. It's dealing with the fact that you're going to have to observe the mind. It's like, how do you get past it? You observe its mannerisms, like you see its weak spots, and then you bring some compassion to it. Like, that's the way to deal with it. Compassion is really just the way through these blocks. And I would say too that, if you're getting into a position too where you want to make sure that you're letting go of this stuff, start a fire. Fire's a great way, if it's like throwing in all the stuff that you don't want anymore, or even just, I would say, even just envisioning a freaking fire in the heart. It's like imagining taking like these old thought patterns and the stuff that this brain on this path is putting out, and saying, okay, I'm going to turn it over to the heart, and the heart's going to burn it away. Go, if the sun's out, go sit in the sun, let the sun burn it away, right? Or do you do the Chiron and Aries, I'm just going to say butthurt sensitivity thing, and do you keep projecting it outward onto people like it's the world's fault, it's government's fault, it's a person's fault, it's people getting mad at each other, it's people getting feisty and testy with each other? Use that passion and energy to direct it within. That's what I got for you guys today. I love you all, and I will see you on Wednesday.